If you see Russet behind me, she is digging in the couch. I don't know if she found what she's looking for, but okay. Hi, it's Kendall here. New around here, welcome. Not new around here, what is home skip biscuit? The last few weeks, I seem to have been watching some really heavy shit, and I just need a bit of a respite. A lot of stuff about drama, DV, police incompetence. I'm also currently listening to It Ends With Us, the book, and then trying to figure out how I want to do a video, if I want to do a video about the movie that has come out recently. Basically, I just didn't want to talk about that again, like something heavy like that. Baby. Every time I stop her from something, she looks so guilty and it's very funny, but she will start again. All right. As of filming, the presidential debate was a few days ago. We did a drinking game anytime like Kamala cackled or Trump talked with his hands or anytime they mentioned China or some misinformation about abortion. We took a sip. We were hammered 15 minutes in. So I figured it's time that we actually talk about something a little lighter. And it seemed that like a beacon in the night, I got recommended this show of my childhood that has really served that purpose for me in the last like week and a half. And as usual, any ADHD fixation of mine becomes an unnecessary video for you. It was like a beacon in the night, shining in the very specific hue, that like blue glow of a tube television in 1999. It feels like a better time. Me being up past my bedtime that I did not have. I did not have a bedtime. I don't know if that's good or bad. I just didn't have a bedtime, but I was up too late for a 4-year-old in the middle of the night with my father watching Iron Chef. It's like 11:30. You just hear frantic English dubbing over this campy and dramatic cooking show, this high octane, ridiculous piece of art. And so I watched a lot of episodes of it as a child, and I've watched a lot of episodes of it as of like 3.5, 4 days ago. And so I want to talk about it. You're welcome. I'm also super curious how like audiences that are unfamiliar and don't have that like nostalgic hue over it the way that I do, how y'all feel about it. I absolutely love it, and I highly recommend if you just want something playing other than my videos, of course, maybe check out Iron Chef because it is. But first, I know y'all not cooking nothing, so let's send it over to today's ad. Take it away, ad roll, Kennie. It seems you're back for more DoorDash. And this video being sponsored by DoorDash comes just in time, because you know you can't cook. I mean, you can learn, but in the meantime, you gotta eat. So why don't you try DoorDash? Though DoorDash is often used to deliver your local favorite restaurants to your door, don't forget that it can be used to deliver a lot of different things, like flowers for your significant other on date night, groceries because it's getting colder and I just don't feel like it, medicine because it's cold season. Make sure to get your flu shot. But when you inevitably don't get the flu shot, DoorDash is there for you to give you soup because you can't leave the house for a few days. Think of DoorDash as your personal assistant that helps you fill in any gaps where you can't be in 48 places at the same time. I've used it when I was throwing parties and I forgot an ingredient to pick up wine. Let's make a day of it. Let's get some wine. Of course, if you're 21 or over, yada, yada, yada. So that you can enjoy more time with your loved ones and the people you care about and are special in your life. And of course, I am passing the benefits on to you, because if you're watching this video, you can click on this link or this QR code floating around my giant noggin to get 50% off your order up to $10 when you spend $15 or more. Big thanks again to DoorDash for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get on to the debauchery. So before we get started, I want to make some clarifications. I am currently talking about the original Iron Chef. I do recognize that there's an American remake, also some like spin-offs that have happened over the years. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the nostalgic relic from my childhood that is now free to watch on YouTube and that I would like to introduce to you if you are unfamiliar. So for the uninitiated, Iron Chef is a show that came out originally in 1993. The setting is a sort of cooking arena in which a guest chef comes to the kitchen stadium looking to compete against the honored Iron Chefs chosen by Chairman Takeshi Kaga. These chefs are called the Iron Chefs, and they are supposed to be the best and almost undefeatable in their particular specialized cuisine. There is one that does Chinese, one that does Japanese, one that does French, and one that does Italian. Each episode, we are given a secret ingredient from which the guest chef, as well as the Iron Chef, is expected expected to use that ingredient to highlight a meal, usually 4 or 6 courses, using that particular ingredient. There would be a tasting that takes place with like a celebrity guest judges. Usually they're like actors or athletes, the occasional government official that I don't know how that, and culinary critics. And there's this one lady who's a fortune teller that's on there all the time. I don't know who she know that got, whatever. But at the end of each battle, a winner is crowned. And if that winner ends up being the guest judge, then they get to go home, I guess, and gloat that they won Iron Chef. I don't know what they win outside of that. If this format sounds familiar to you, this show was really an inspiration, one of, if not the inspiration for a lot of like current day American cooking competition shows. Beat Bobby Flay, there's Iron Chef America. I haven't watched like Top Chef, those type of cooking competition shows, right? And there is an American one again that's hosted by the chairman, the host of this show's nephew, if I remember correctly, which is fun. But the show isn't as good. Not enough camp. Well, it's very forced camp. Tries to be camp. Trying too hard.
Honey! Farmers market! Milk and cream!
Wow.
Yeah!
It's not the same. It's not. It's just not the same. Now, though the show was originally started in 1993, it would not come to the United States until 98. And at that point, it had gained quite a bit of popularity already abroad. And now the show was brought to the Food Network in the United States with a very, very interesting dubbing component on it.
You got it as a gift?
Yes, that's right.
Well, today another freebie.
Which, sure, maybe you can find it out there without the dubbing if you want to read these like fast-paced subtitles. But I think dubbing is the way to go. That is what gives it that final like cherry on top camp foolishness because it doesn't match a lot of times. It's going 50 million miles an hour. You can tell certain things are definitely translated in a way to make more sense to an American audience. They'll make jokes and references that are obviously like one nobody in Japan saying certain jokes that were, a lot of them would be based in the English language, like jokes in that way. But all of this combines together to create just a fabulously foolish viewing experience, but also a level of appreciation for the culinary art, like literally the art of creating new and unique and confusing food. And it's everything. Now, I think it's easy to talk about the show, but there's something to actually witnessing it, watching it, because only then do I think you fully understand the kind of theatrics of the show, which is the part that I personally love the most. And I think there's a lot of like fableizing, some kayfabe, some like, like in Maury, where they do like the interviews like, I am not that baby's father. And, before that, and then they bring them in. They do like these fableizing mini movies or dramatizations.
Like a fierce bear from the north, he is set on taking down Iron Chef Morimoto. As the first hitman from the Ota family, show us what you've got.
Fuji, just do it. I'll defeat Morimoto.
And everything is ultimately introduced by aforementioned Chairman Takeshi Kaga, who is this eccentric, flamboyant thespian. And thespian is the perfect word for him because he has a background in art, theater, acting. He was quite the eccentric, but I think as I've gotten older, I've grown to really appreciate his theatrics. Motherfucker had that shit on. He came out every week with a Michael Jackson Remember the Time blowout, hell, dressed like he was on the Dangerous tour. And again, they would create this lore around him that he traveled countries and traveled and tasted and wanted and dreamed of this place in which he could bring the best chefs together to fight for the honored title of being the best at cuisine for this episode. And they wouldn't just say that, they would show him, not like driving around. It would be him being in a horse-drawn carriage. It was the 1990s. He could have took a taxi, but no. He wanted to dress. This is an obscure reference. He wanted to dress. Also, I think the song came out after the show happened, but he wanted to dress like Gak and Miserable. Do, 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 do. That's a very good joke for someone very specific. The theater of it all. And that combined also with how he performs as chairman of the show. He comes out, again, dressed head to toe like Prince. He would speak in prose, eat things in one dramatic bite, smiling. Like the intro of the show is him dramatically walking out onto stage, taking a yellow bell pepper, taking a giant bite out of it, chews once, and smiles. Slowly the camera pans out of him continuing to laugh at eating a vegetable, and you see this army of trained chefs as the camera pans out, and that every week is Iron Chef. According to in-show lore, Chairman Kaga found, again, these Iron Chefs around the world, most likely it was just Japan, but maybe the US a little bit too, but around the world, and he brought them to the Kitchen Stadium to compete and represent the Kitchen Stadium as the best in the country. So the original chefs were Iron Chef Japanese, who was Rokusaburo Michiba, Chinese Chen Kenichi, and French was Yutaka Ishinabe. In 1994, however, they changed French to Hiroyuki Sakai, who I love. He was very daddy to me. He wasn't daddy when I was a child. Now, as a nearly 30-year-old woman, I'm like, ooh. Like when he put the glasses on and he's so focused. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm not going to explain myself to you though. Not going to do it. Not gonna do it. In 1996, they changed Japanese to Komei Nakamura. And then in 1997, they added a new chef. That would be Iron Chef Italian, Masahiko Kobe. I don't really know why they added him because he doesn't show up that much. Like he doesn't do that many competitions. So I don't know why they brought him. I guess because at the time, like Italian food and Italian restaurants were becoming more popular in Japan. So maybe they just thought they needed to represent it if they're gonna be representing French. I don't know. But he like rarely competed. They would just like throw him off on somebody who also did Italian food, which wasn't that often in comparison to Chinese, Japanese, or Chinese. Wait, Chinese, Japanese, or French. And then finally, they decided to change Iron Chef Japanese again, and this time it would be changed to Masaharu Morimoto. And if you're familiar with that name, one, he is also on Iron Chef American. Morimoto has created a lot of his career steps in New York, where he was actually the head chef of Nobu, which I did not know was as old as that. I thought Nobu came out in like, I don't know, like 2010 or something. I don't know. People just start talking about Nobu. I'm like, eh. But yeah, no, that's been around for a hot minute. He was the head chef in 1994. I am curious how this went, being head chef there and then filming this show. Maybe he just like went back and forth. I don't know. Oh, sounds exhausting. So again, the show didn't come to the United States until 98. So I'm not familiar with the first two Iron Chef Japans and the first Iron Chef French. So I don't care about them and I wouldn't. I'm sorry. I'm just bracing it off of my nostalgia and I don't know them names. Everybody that's set in stone by 1998, which would be Morimoto, Sakai, Chen Kenichi, and Kobe. At that point, that's my set. That's who I know. So that's who I'll be talking about. Growing up, my favorite was Morimoto. I don't really know why. I assume it's because as a child, I like the idea of, he does a lot of fusion food and like neo-Japanese. So he'll play around with a lot of like New York staples, like bagels and pizza, and somehow mix that into Japanese food. And I thought that was cool. Like the idea of like a sushi bagel. It was like, ooh, cool. But now as an adult, my two favorites are Chen Kenichi because he's funny as hell. He has no chill. He always eating shit in the middle. Like, there's one thing to test your food. There's one thing to test your food and taste your food if you're going to be serving it. But he'd be in that like, oh, this is good.
Different species or something along those lines.
It's good. That's really pretty good.
No, it was fire. And I'm like, you got 60 minutes, man. I don't know.
So how'd they turn out?
Huh?
Your dishes.
Interesting dishes, I'd say.
You mean you don't even know their potential, whether they're good or just so-so?
I'm totally lost.
I brought up before, Chef Sakai. He was also funny, but daddy, like, I'm sorry. I'm just telling you the truth. I gotta be who I am. I gotta live my truth. That is awesome. So if you're watching the show, this is kind of how the show goes down, right? It starts off with a quote. The quote is, "Tell me what you eat and I'll tell you what you are," which is based off, I don't know how to say this. This is French. Brillat Savarin. It's the quote that we get, you are what you eat. And because, again, the show got brought over 5 years after it started, it comes off with this, like, fabulistic, retrospective, like, in the times of lore, Chairman Kaga went around the world in his horse-drawn carriage. And in this mystic fog, he found these secret warriors that would be the end of other chefs. They cower in fear and their knees buckles at the feudal lords, strongmen of cooking. And we get to take part. We get to enjoy the pleasures of the dream that Kaga had in searching for these Iron Chef here today. Now, again, I love the kind of the theatrics of it, the kayfabe of, the mysticism around it. But honestly, it was probably just the production found people that they just wanted to make a show. I'm sure Fuji just really wanted to make a show. Now, again, each episode is created with this foggy introduction to the challenger. There's usually some dramatic lore that brings them there today to regain their honor, to protect tradition, to bring pride to their family or personal business. They come in and there's torches aflame and people are playing live orchestral music. The chefs are called upon and raised from the floor as, again, more orchestral music is playing. They're holding like a pear. Then the challenger goes up to pick his Iron Chef he will be competing against. There's usually this like intense, I choose you, Iron Chef, whatever, right? The orchestras play. It's dramatic as if like someone died on stage, something Shakespearean. That is, of course, unless the person cooks Italian food in which they just throw Kobe at them, most likely. They introduce the secret ingredient, usually under the stage, and it floats up to the top and revealed by Chairman Kaga by ripping off of a cape. And in a flourish, you see some random ingredient, many of which are just innocuous: salmon, peaches, and some that would be considered more unfamiliar to American audiences, like shark fin, maybe even abalone. I had abalone one time and it was very expensive and it wasn't worth it. But just because these ingredients are sometimes simple, that doesn't mean that they're not of incredible quality. Like, they can't just give you beef. They got to give you beef that only exists on one particular island where only one cow survives and each pound of meat is $48 million. Or if it's seafood, it is alive and you will have to kill it. And some of these chefs have never done that before. So that can be a bit much. I guess I should warn y'all about that. If you're uncomfortable watching animals be killed, well, fish in particular be killed, I don't know if I recommend this show because it's a bit much for some people, I can imagine. And then over the course of 60 minutes, in again, dramatic fashion, we are to watch the chefs try to make unique and daring meals based off of these things. And usually that would involve an appetizer, a main, maybe two other small dishes. And sometimes if they feeling froggy, they will go for a dessert. And that's always, they say, is good. I have no choice but to believe them.
Last, broccoli ice cream. The sauce and honey tie this seemingly unusual combination together.
Again, I just said about how, like, even if the ingredients are a bit innocuous, there's an element of extravagance with them. Like, for instance, there is an episode on peaches in which it's not just some normal peach, I guess you get at Walmart or Japanese equivalents. It's like a $10 peach, a $30 peach in 1998. What? What is it made out of? Jesus's ass? They've also like repeated ingredients, but this one particular episode I'm thinking of, they had salmon and they couldn't just give them salmon. It was $400 salmon because they were unisex salmon. And apparently, I didn't know this, unisex salmon, because it doesn't use its energy and nutrients that it collects to reproduce, that nutrients is absorbed into the meat, making it like softer and more flavorful or whatever. But it's $1,200 a salmon. Bitch, what?
Someone sent one to me, and I was told of its uniqueness after I finished it.
It's too bad.
But I didn't really think it tasted all that different.
And for the next 60 minutes, on the fly, these people have to come up with daring and unique recipes, beautiful recipes. I didn't even talk about that. They have to look good. To see people like kind of rush around a kitchen and come up with new and exciting and interesting techniques, it is really inspiring me and got me cooking. Like, I be cooking, I be throwing down a little bit, just a little something, a little sugar, make it shake. But again, I'm pretty adventurous when it comes to food, but there are certain meals that you'd have to, I don't know if I would go for it. Particularly when we're talking about the dessert aspects of things, usually it's just putting things that shouldn't be in ice cream or in gelatin or in a trifle like broccoli, squid ink, tuna, just like what the And I'm not fully sure if they're required to make a dessert course, but that does seem to be where people get their most daring. And sometimes it works. It's still weird to me, but sometimes it works. So hey, what do I know? But above that, it's like being innovative, not just in your techniques, but also in full usage of animals as well. I really appreciate that, because I feel like if I were to be eaten for someone's sustenance and all you ate was like 35% of me, you go die. I get it. So like using things that would traditionally be seen as scraps, like bones and skin and organ meat, offal, heads, fin, stuff like that, to create texture and intrigue and flavor. And again, in the confines of 60 minutes. And though this is interesting in and of itself, and honestly adds its own element of drama, the thing that I like the most is the additional aspects of drama, the things that really bring it home. It's the speed. Again, 60 minutes is not a lot of time. They don't really have a lot of time to think or do a lot of shit. And it's one of those situations where I'm like, how do y'all bring it together every week? Because I'm the type of bitch, if there's just too much going on, I get overwhelmed and I'm like, I'll do this tomorrow. But you don't have that option. I'll order out. Like, I'm gonna do this. I'll DoorDash. And the drama of everything is supplemented by the commentators. There's announcer Kenji Fukui, commentator Dr. Yukio Hattori, who is also kind of there as our scholar of sorts to give us background information on maybe lesser known food facts about ingredients. Sometimes there'll be things that even the chefs are unfamiliar with, or the guests are unfamiliar with, or the audience is unfamiliar with, and usually can give some insight on techniques being used by the chefs and why they may go about that, and how, in perspective on whether or not those techniques or flavor combinations will work. But the guy that I remembered most, not by name, I did not remember his name, but there is the floor reporter. His name is Shinichiro Ota. I don't know. Again, I don't remember his name, but I do remember his incessant butting into conversation with a polite but a numerous Fukui-san, Fukui-san, Fukui-san,
Fukui-san, Fukui-san, Fukui-san, Fukui-san, Fukui-san, Fukui-san, Fukui-san, Fukui-san, Fukui-san, Fukui-san, Fukui-san, Fukui-san, Fukui-san, Fukui-san, Fukui-san, Fukui-san, Fukui-san, Fukui-san, Fukui-san, Fukui-san, Fukui-san, Fukui-san, Fukui-san.
Like, you'd be watching it and it's like easily in one episode, he will say Fukui-san to butt in and to give like updates on what's going on the floor, as well as like let the audience know some like preliminary interview things, topics that had come up. Again, I'm curious for people that are not like familiar with the show, would they find that endearing as I do because of the nostalgia, or will it be incredibly annoying? He's there to give us minute-to-minute updates about the battle taking place. And that's really important to understand. It is a battle. It's a sparring match, a battle of pride, of honor. It's dramatic anyway, but my favorite episodes are always the ones where people be talking mad shit and lose.
Said Iron Chef Japanese, he doesn't qualify as a Japanese chef. He makes a lot of weird dishes and I don't like him using the title. Go over there and tell him he's totally out of his league and he's out of his mind if he thinks he can beat me. He looked angry as usual.
Doing a show like this is more like just playing around.
Whose cuisine reigns supreme? It's Morimoto!
There was one episode where one dude came in with a gang of niggas, like 50 niggas deep, to challenge Morimoto because he had been doing too much of that weird neo-Japanese shit and we're traditionalists. So they came in 50 niggas deep with banners of flying and they saying, we're not gonna let you f up tradition, bitch. They lost, if I remember correctly. There's this one dude that was going through a separation and they brought that shit to the kitchen table.
There's been some strife at home, resulting in the wife leaving, taking the kids with her to her parents' house.
He said, I'm really embarrassed. It's totally my fault. I only think about cooking and not enough about my wife. She's right in saying I spend too much time at the restaurant. I should take her out more often, I guess. I don't mean to neglect my personal life.
Shut up!
He was going through a separation and his wife sent a letter cheering him on, even though she said, I'm not taking you back right now. I don't know if I'm gonna forgive you, but we looking at you on TV, so congratulations.
In another episode of As the Challenger's World Turns, he says, both of us are very stubborn. We both hate to apologize to each other. We've been separated for 2 weeks now, but after I win this battle, I'm going right back to her and apologize. Will he win? Will she accept? Stay tuned.
This is Watabe, come home. If I knew I could have food this great, I'd go home.
He also didn't want the 2 assistant chefs that they give you to be on the show. He didn't want them. He was like, no, I'm gonna go it alone. And I was sitting there the whole time. That's why you getting separated. Sometimes you need to depend on others. Because you're also making this worse and harder on yourself. Incidentally, the person he went against was Iron Chef French Hiroyuki Sakai, and he decided, okay, fine, y'all talking about how cool it is that he don't have any sous chefs. I'm gonna do it on my own too. And then he burned some shit. It was so dramatic. But in my opinion, the best episodes are the ones that are ties, which are very rare. But the tie ones are so great because they have to do a 30-minute tiebreaker match the same day of whatever day that they got the tie. And a lot of times, don't no chef want to do that shit. They've been running and sweating and intensely going at it for the last hour. And you telling them it was so good. Let's do it again. Hey, there was this one tie that Iron Chef Chinese Chen Kenichi, he had to use yogurt and he was pissed. He was like, I make Chinese food. The I'm gonna do with yogurt. And then at the end of that grueling time, the commentators and the guest judges all come together, as well as at the head of the table is Chairman Kaga naturally. And though the show in general has a lot of just awkward dubbing moments, I find that it's most evident during the tasting. And again, that just adds to the endearing nature of it for me. It's like this bumbling, confusing, indescript, ironically, as they're describing food experience, but only when someone, usually an old woman who doesn't have much of a filter, chimes in saying, this shit is nasty, do I lose my ever-loving mind.
This is awful.
I'm sorry.
What's happened to you? This tastes terrible. This is like the Hanshin Tigers.
Good analogy.
There is simply no unity among the players on the team.
If I remember correctly, it might be the same old woman. The fortune teller lady. Maybe that's how she got there. She's just very, very upfront. She's like, it's nasty.
Here, let me try a piece of yours.
This is not a cheap restaurant.
This one is good.
See, it's what I said.
But that one is terrible. It's all overcooked and hard.
Why is it nasty? But yeah, the bad dubbing is part of the nostalgia. It's part of what makes it great. The only person notably that doesn't get dubbed over is Chairman Kaga. I wonder why that is. I think there is something to his theatrical voice, or maybe he was just like, don't dub me over. It's not better than the way I'm going to introduce today's episode. They dub him over when those like retrospective like conversations like in the intro, but as far as like him during the show, they don't dub him over. But yeah, like as flourishing as their compliments are, when they don't like it, it is so funny. They like go out of their way to say something like, damn. One time somebody said, this is an assault to my taste buds. Like you offended me. But eventually the guests are to make a vote, I assume on various parameters around presentation, of course, taste, use of the special ingredient. And at the end of the night, scores are calculated and a winner is crowned. Most likely, I'd say 85 to 90% of the time, that is an Iron Chef, even when arguably they shouldn't have won. Like those episodes where she said, wow, this is awful, he still won that. And I don't know if that insinuates that there was something kind of shady in the voting process, or if even his worst food is still better than other people. I don't know. But there are times when the guest does win. I remember watching one where it was the guest chef was the head chef of a restaurant created by some A-list celebrity pop guy. And I was like, well, if they're going to do collusion, this would be the time. And he still lost. So, but regardless, that is the viewing experience, the flourish, the chaos of it all. And it made me feel at home. It's been filling my home with the sound of nostalgia. And I don't know, it's just great. So if you've never heard of it, if you're not into cooking shows or whatever, I am curious what you would think of it, because it's a masterpiece. Like I said, I'm not a fan of Iron Chef America. It's corny in a way that's like, not in the way that's like, oh, I love it, camp. This is like, ugh. Because the dudes start coming out doing kung fu, but the rest of the show isn't campy enough for that. He just seems like he on an 8-ball just going. But this show is just flourishing and sparkling and a mess, but it all comes together at the end, like me. But anyway, if you like this video, feel free to like this video. If there's other things you think I should watch, let me know. You can put them down in the comment section. In the same kind of like cooking show world, I've been told that the British Bake Off championships are also fun, so I might watch those too, even though I don't care about baking as much. There's something so fun about the chaos of this show, so I don't know, we'll see. But if you like this video, feel free to like this video. Follow me on all my social media, Instagram and Twitter, both of which are KennieJD. If there's anything you think I should watch, anything you want me to review, put them down in the comment section, or you can send them over to me on the Bird app, Twitter, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.